Hi everyone, I am Wes and I'm one of the ministers at the Memorial Church of Harvard University. Welcome to Practicing Hope, our weekly Instagram and Facebook Live, where we explore practices that sustain and inspire hope within us. This month, we have been looking at practices of solitude and community, and the practices that help to bridge the distance between them. Tonight, I want to talk to you about using prayer beads. Prayer beads are common in various religious traditions. You see them in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Islam. In Christianity, prayer beads are believed to have begun with the early desert fathers and mothers. Within Christianity, there are different ways to use prayer beads and even different names for prayer beads. Roman Catholics refer to prayer beads, the specific type of prayer bead, as a rosary. Protestants, especially Anglicans and Lutherans, have a different style and they call them simply prayer beads. Orthodox Christians, again, have prayer beads but slightly different style and call them prayer ropes. So prayer beads can be used in solitude and in community. You can pray them on your own. You can pray them in a group. I like prayer beads because they help to still my thoughts and they help me to focus my attention on God's presence and activity in my life. Prayer beads are also a good way to keep your hands occupied when you're praying. They allow for a nice structured set of prayer that keeps your mind focused and all of the extra stuff that's happening up there kind of at the margins. I also like these because I can take them when I'm walking around my neighborhood and pray as I go on my morning walk. So, how to use prayer beads? For tonight's example, I'm going to use a rosary. That's what I have. This may or may not be probably the most common type of prayer bead that is used. So for a rosary, you have a cross at the bottom. You have a series of beads, a large central bead, or in this case, what would be a large central bead is a medallion, and this has Mary on. Then around the outside, you have clusters of 10 beads, and then solitary beads that go around in between each cluster of 10. And the solitary beads, these are sometimes called the decade beads. And decade beads are used when you pray the rosary. You often select some of the mysteries of the church to pray. For example, the joyful mysteries. And each of the decade beads is a different part of that mystery that you focus on at that particular point in prayer. So if we were to use the rosary to pray, how this works is you start at the bottom with the cross, and when you pray, when you begin, you say the Apostles' Creed. And then you move to this singular bead and offer the Lord's Prayer. You have then a series of 3 beads, 3 smaller beads, and for those beads you offer a Hail Mary for each one. Then afterwards, right before you get to the central bead, you have your first decade bead. And so if you're praying with the joyful mysteries, your first bead is your Annunciation. And the joyful mysteries, these are the fun stories that we often hear at Christmas time. And so you'll make your way through the joyful mysteries with the decade beads. So beginning right here with the first one, and then you go to the large central bead. And at the large central bead, you offer the Gloria Patri, or the Glory be to the Father. And then you get to your first cluster of 10 smaller beads. And for each of those, you offer a Hail Mary until you get to your next decade bead. And then you would go to the next part of the joyful mysteries, which would be the Visitation. And then you have your next set of cluster of 10 beads. Now, as you can see, this gets a little complicated. Praying the rosary takes time and practice, and for some people, it can be a little bit of a distraction. I'm one of those people. So I have created my own set of prayers that I pray when I use this set of prayer beads or my prayer beads. So, like the rosary, I'll start with the cross, but I offer the Lord's Prayer at that point. And then for all of the small beads, this cluster here and all of them around this portion, I pray the Jesus prayer at each bead. And this is a small prayer that is also believed to have started with our Desert Fathers and Mothers. And then for the central bead or the medallion, I will pray one Hail Mary, and this is a good way for me to help to remember what faithfulness looks like. Looking at Mary as a prime example of faithfulness. And then I'll go around and pray all of the Jesus prayers as I'm walking or sitting down and moving each bead in between my fingers. Now, if you don't have prayer beads, you can simply make your own using some string or beads that you have lying around. If you want to get sophisticated, you can get a kit online. But to experience the type of prayer that happens with prayer beads, you don't even need beads. You can simply just use your hands. And you might offer a prayer that is important to you for each finger on your hand. And then for the spaces between, maybe there's a verse from Scripture that is important to you that you have memorized. And you can pray your prayer and hold a finger, your first finger where you started, and then move to the space and reflect on that Scripture verse that you have memorized, and then go and pray your prayer again and hold your finger. And you can make your way around 5 times, 10 times, whatever you feel comfortable doing. So I invite you to give prayer beads a try or praying with your hands and see how God is bridging the gap between community and solitude with this particular practice. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to join us next week, next Thursday at 7 p.m. And we look forward to sharing another spiritual practice with you then. All right, take care.